Hey everyone, Dr. Frunke here with a new knife comparison video for you. In front of us are two knives that I think deserve to be compared because of their sort of philosophy in terms of how they're made, their overall finish, their overall feel, and their overall sizes. But they are two very different knives from two very different makers, and so I wanted to highlight both of them, but also compare them. I also want to say, just right off the bat, there's not going to be a winner and a loser in this video. I wanted to just talk about them because I've actually had a lot of questions from the community regarding these two knives and a comparison. And so I think that just touching on it briefly would be a nice thing to talk about. So in front of us, let's just start out with the Grimsmo Norseman. This is a very, very interesting knife that really hit the market hard a few years ago because the Grimsmo brothers really introduced a concept of a high-value, fully CNC machined custom knife. And they have been refining their tactics for a number of years. Now, I don't remember exactly when this knife first came out, but it has to have been at least 5 or 6 years since it came out. This is 2018 that I'm filming this. So it's been a little while. Maybe it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it because it's been around for a while. But they've been incrementally evolving the knife. And what they're really known for is this incredible action. They have a ball bearing pivot and these CNC tolerances that are really second to none. And every time you hear an argument about an action on a knife, the Norseman is inevitably going to be discussed because it has a very unique detent and then a very, very smooth fall shut action. The detent is unique because they've actually flattened the detent ball. I want to try to show that here. It may work, it may not work. If you can see the detent ball in there, it has been flattened so that it doesn't ride against the blade in the same way when the knife is being opened and closed. But it still maintains the full diameter of the ball bearing detent so that it retains the knife in the blade quite nicely. So this action is unbelievably smooth. I must say it's probably the most fall shutty knife of any knife I've ever experienced. It is a true finger guillotine in such a way that every time I drop it, it bounces off of its stop pin and comes out of the detent. If you see some other knives and people doing it, it's every single time it falls that quickly. And honestly, that's both a good thing and a bad thing. While you can control that with sort of turning the knife, you're finding yourself limiting how quickly that knife will disengage. At least I do, because it falls so fast that it bounces out of the detent and so is then not secured in the blade, so it's not completely safe. That is a thing for me, and it's so smooth that it bounces out every time, and if you're not careful, it may not be fully engaged in the detent. I realize that's a silly thing, but it is something that I have noticed. Now, the action on the brown knife Servo is relatively similar, and that is a very good thing. It has a very, very nice drop shut action. Now, Craig has been experimenting with the flattened detent balls. He is not doing that with any regularity, and he may not intend to do that in the future. But his action, even without that, is unbelievably smooth. The detent is very nicely dialed in. I will say this is an earlier knife for Craig, and so he has some smaller things to work out in terms of his lock bar tension and other things like that. And what I mean is that if I get my finger anywhere near this lock bar, if I breathe on it the wrong way, that blade, you could see, does not want to come out nearly as easily. It will, but if I keep my fingers well away from the lock bar, the action remains perfect. That is not really something that I've noticed here on the Norseman. If I put my finger on the lock bar, there's no change in that action. So that is something there. Now let's talk about the blades. Both of them have nearly 4-inch blades. I'll go ahead and bring out the ruler and we'll go ahead and see what we're looking at here. Yeah, the Norseman is looking at a hair under 4 inches. It's really more like 3¼ inches. And then the blade length here on the Servo is a little bit closer to 4 inches, almost right at exactly 4 inches. So you get a little bit more blade on the Servo there. The handle length is coming in a hair under 5 inches, so about 4.9 inches. So 4 inches of blade in a less than 5-inch handle. But the handle on the Norseman, if I get it lined up right, is pretty much exactly 5 inches. You know, maybe one tick below, but it's almost exactly at 5 inches. So you get more blade in the Servo than you do in the Norseman. I may also argue that the blade on the Servo is a little bit more useful, the full flat ground shape, and the overall drop point sort of configuration of the knife is a bit more everyday user friendly right there. The shape on the Norseman is more unique than anything else. I get the sense that this was meant to be shown off. Testament to that are these lines that are sort of left on the blade after the CNC is done cutting this out of the steel. It just sort of adds to the presentation nature of the knife rather than the user nature, but it does have an incredibly sharp edge. They do a very good job sharpening their knives. And there are people out there that could probably benefit from having a blade shape like this, but this long sort of recurved thing right here with no flat, and then this tanto tip, while it is a very unique grind, it may not be the most useful grind. So if you're looking for a knife that you may actually want to use on a regular basis, this may be more practical. I'm not saying this is unusable, I'm just saying it's maybe less usable in more situations. So moving back to the handles, this is where both of these makers really flex their CNC talents. The Grimsmo brothers have 2 thin slices of titanium. They are milled internally only in the sense that there are some logos and some serialization and other things on the inside. They are not weight reduced on the inside significantly. These scales here on the Servo are a little bit thicker, and that does result in an overall thicker package, but it does maintain a little bit of a less tall profile. So I'll go ahead and get the calipers out. We're going to get some exact measurements right here. The thickness is exactly 0.4 inches. That's pretty impressive on the Grimsmo Knives Norseman. But the height, let's go ahead and measure it at the highest point right here, is 1.482 inches. So 1.48 inches and exactly 0.4 inches thick. So this one is also going to be precise. I don't want to scrape my blackened titanium, but that's coming in at 0.494. So it's just under half an inch. And then the height at the thickest point, which will be here, something like that. I didn't really measure the flipper tab on the other one, is 1.2 inches. So a little bit less tall, but a little bit thicker. But those margins are not really all that bad. If you take a look at the knives when they're closed like this, they're very similar in their overall profile. In terms of the clips, both of them function very, very well. Both of them have these 3D milled pocket clips. I have not had a complaint with either one of these. The Grimsmo Knives puts their over travel stop disc internally. Craig has put his externally for now, and he's added a bit of Timascus flair to that, so I appreciate that from an aesthetic point of view right here. Now let's talk about sort of the customization options a little bit here. At this point, the Grimsmo brothers are only making this knife in sort of maker's choice editions. So they actually produced this knife and then sold it randomly, and my buddy Nico at Today's Grail Tomorrow's Beater picked it up. So it was done in this purple anodized finish and this honeycomb milled pattern. Now, my discussions with Craig ended up with this fully customized version. I don't know that the Grimsmo brothers ever strayed very far from their handful of patterns on their titanium, and so it's exciting to see Craig offering some very interesting options there. Now, again, there's not going to be a clear winner and a loser in this. These are both excellent knives. You will not be disappointed by either one of them. I'm very happy to own the Brown Knife Servo. The action is very, very similar, and it's a little bit nicer to me. It feels a little bit fresher. This is a bit of a funky knife right here, the Norseman, and I can't get over the fact that it bounces off the stop pin every single time and doesn't always secure in the detent. There may be something to be said for having a very, very small amount of resistance on your drop shut action so that the knife may be a little bit safer. Maybe it doesn't fall closed on you quite as easily, or it stays in the detent, unlike this. So, thank you guys for watching. Which one of these knives do you prefer? Do you have any questions that maybe I could answer down below in the comments? If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. Check me out on Instagram as Dr. Frunky. Check out Brown Knives, at Brown Knives, and the Grimsmo brothers. And thanks for watching, guys. This is Dr. Frunky saying take care.